Hi everyone, Krishna this side. In this video, I'll be covering this LeetCode problem 2616. Minimize the maximum difference of pairs. Okay, let us look into the problem statement first. And I have already solved few of the problems related to this particular problem that I'll be showing you the playlist. You can watch that entire video series if you are beginner to this type of problems, and it will be pretty much easy whenever next time this type of problems comes in your hand. Okay, so you are given a zero indexed integer array nums and integer p. Find p pairs of indices of nums such that maximum difference amongst all the pairs is minimized. Okay, this condition is really matters the most. So whenever you see that maximum difference amongst all the pairs is minimized, or minimum difference all the different combinations should be maximized. So whenever we see this type of conditions, the only thing that should comes in our mind is it might be falling under the binary search problem. Okay, so at any point in time when you notice this type of conditions in your problem, just try to think that if you can solve this particular problem with the help of binary search or not. Okay, and if you try to solve 5 to 6 problems related to these type of questions, I guarantee you that whenever you notice this type of problems, you can easily solve within minutes. Okay, so yes, this condition really matters the most when it is saying that maximum difference among the pairs of all the pairs that we choose should be minimized. Also, ensure no indices appears more than once among the p pairs. So whenever we choose a pair, that whatever the index that we choose for first pair, that index shouldn't be appear in the coming pairs. Okay, so note that for a pair of elements at index I and j, the difference of the pairs is nums of I minus nums of j. X is the absolute value of x. Okay, so whatever the x that we are getting, so it should be absolute value. So return the maximum difference among all the p pairs. We define maximum of empty set to be 0. Okay, so what we have to do is, let us look into this particular example first. So we have given this array, and we have to form p pairs. Among the p pairs, so the pairs difference should be minimum, and whatever the answer that we are getting, the pairs minimum answer that we are getting, whatever out of all those minimum pairs answer, whatever the maximum value that we get, that is something what we have to write into the output. Okay, so what I'm trying to say is, let us look into the same example. We have this 10 1 2 7 1 3. So okay, first pair that I have chosen is this index 1 and 1. Okay, once I choose this index, what is the difference between 1 and 1? It is 0, right? So 0 is something what we got. The second pair that I can choose is 2 and 3. See here, I am not repeating the same indexes. Okay, so once I choose 1 1, I cannot pick it with the next pairs. Okay, that is what they have said into the problem statement. So next pair that I have choose is like 2 and 3. So difference between 2 and 3 is 1, because they are looking for absolute value. So it doesn't matter how we are subtracting. So whatever the value that we are getting, we are considering it into the absolute one. Okay, so this is the one pair that we form, because the p value is basically 2. So we can consider here only two pairs, and whatever the answer that we got here, it is like 0 and 1. Okay, so among this 0 and 1, what is the maximum value that we are getting? Maximum difference among the minimized pairs. Okay, so these are pairs value that we got. So maximum value out of these two different pair is basically 1. Okay, so this is one possibility. Okay, now next possibility what we can consider here is 1 and 2. I can consider that, right? 1 and 2, and next is like 1 and 3. Here the difference is, sorry, it is basically 1 and 2 is what we get. Okay, 1 minus 2 is basically 1, 1 minus 3 is basically 2. So maximum difference out of this 1 and 2 is basically 2. Next pair I can choose is like, I can pick any two elements. Okay, to consider a pair. So 1 and 7 is what I have considered right over here. 3 and 10 is what I have considered. So difference between them is like 6 and 7, and 7 is the maximum value that I am getting. So yes, we can create a different type of combinations out of these array values to create p pairs. So here it is 2. So basically we were considering just two pairs, and we were getting the differences, and whichever the maximum value that we get out of the pairs differences, that is something what we are getting the answer. Okay, out of all these different answers, now just tell me like which is the minimized pair. This is the minimized pair, right? So because it is having minimum values comparing with all the other pairs that we are having. So out of all these different pairs, which is the minimum values pair that we are getting? This is the minimum. So in that pair, what is the maximum value that we got so far? So 1 is the maximum value that we got, so that is something what we have to write into the output. Okay, a bit tricky to understand the statement, but yes, so once you understand how to solve this type of problems, it is going to be pretty much easy. Okay, so yes, we got to know that, like, okay, we have to form different pairs, and out of all the different pairs possibilities that we got, which is the minimum pair that we got, minimum paired values, from there, what is the maximum value that we got, that is something what we have to write into the output. Okay, now we got the concept. Okay, that is something what we have to do. So yes, we can, what we can do is basically we can create for loops, and multiple for loops we can run with checking different pairs and get the output, but that is going to be in n square, and yes, possibly it is not best approach while considering the constraint, because it is 10 to the power of 5 into 10 to the power of 5 is basically 10 to the power of 10, and it is greater than 10 to the power of 8. So yes, I already explained that whenever the value goes beyond 10 to the power of 6, we shouldn't consider n square possible answer. Okay, so yeah, we will going to hit TLE, absolutely. So yes, that is something what we don't have to consider right over here. So what is the other idea that we can consider? So as I already said that whenever we get this type of statements in the problem, we have to think about binary search. So now how binary search will get applied right over here, right? So one thing is clear, pretty much clear, that when we sort this data, okay, let me sort the data first right over here. So see, difference between the argand element is, as every single time it is going to be minimum comparing with this value, and see, what I'm trying to say is 1 and 1 difference is always minimum comparing with 1 and 3, whereas 2 and 3. Okay, so 1 and 3's difference, what is the 1 and 3 difference? It is 2, and 2 and 3's difference is basically 1. So at any point in time when we sort the data, we are pretty much clear that whatever the adjacent elements that we got, that is going to give the minimum difference, no matter what different indices if we try to consider. Okay, 1 and 7's difference is always maximum compared with 3 and 7's difference. So yes, definitely we will sort the data, because we are looking for minimum difference pair, right? So once we sort the data, it is going to be clear that yes, we can try to apply the binary search. Okay, because binary search basically works with the sorted data, that is the idea that we have. But here it doesn't matter that really, like, if it is sorted or not for binary search, but yes, we will sort the data to get the minimum differences between the adjacent elements, because that is something what we are trying to look right over here, right? So whatever the difference that we are getting, it should be minimum. Okay, so yes, we will sort the data to get the minimum absolute difference between the adjacent values. Now once we sort the data, we will have the idea that okay, the difference between the adjacent values is minimum, so we can consider few of the pairs and try to find the best answer that we can get. Okay, so now how to get the best answer, right? So how to apply the binary search? So what we can do is, our answer is actually lying in a range from 0 to 9. How it is? See, so what is the maximum difference that we can get if we subtract 10 minus 1, right? Maximum answer that we can get is 10 minus 1, which is basically 9. So this is the maximum answer that we can get here, right? So if we create a pair 1 comma 10, so this is going to give us maximum answer, that is going to be 9, right? So this is the maximum answer that we can get. So max boundary is what we got. So this last range is going to be 9, right? So if they ask, uh, if they have given values like 1 and 10, and p is basically 1, so answer is definitely going to be 9, no matter how we are forming it, right? So yes, of course the maximum difference that we can get is 9. So yes, the boundary is set, and lowest value that we can get is 0, because they are also saying that empty, for empty set it should be 0. So yes, we can start with 0. The lowest value that we can get is, if p is basically 1 here, and the absolute difference between 1 and 1 is basically 0, right? So yes, lowest value that we can form is 0. So yes, we got the range. Now answer is basically going to lie between this range, right? 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9. So in this range only the answer is going to be uh, relying, correct? So yes, now we got this range, we got the maximum value to which our range is going to be. So yes, what we can do is, our low is going to point to 0, and the high is basically pointing to the last value. Now we can get the mid. So mid is basically low plus high minus low plus high divided by 2, basically it is going to be 4. Okay, we got the mid. The moment we got the mid, what we can try to see is, if this, whatever the value that we got 4, right? If it is going to be a possible answer or not. So what I'm trying to say is, when we try to subtract these values, okay, to get different pairs, so among all the pairs, if whatever the difference that we are getting, if it is less than or equals to this 4 or not, if it is less than or equals to this 4, that means that pair is basically a possible pair, because we are trying to see if 4 is possible answer or not. So we are supposed to write here maximum possible answer among the all the minimized pair, right? So we are just checking that if 4 is possible answer or not. See, so how we can try? So what we can do is, we can start a for loop starting from the 0th index till last index. So what we can do is, we will check first 1 and 1, because this is going to give the lowest value that we can get it, right? So 1 and 1's difference is basically 0. So if it is possible, we will consider a counter. So counter basically value is incremented. Now we can check if whenever the counter's value is basically equals to this p, because we need to form p pairs. So this is one pair, so another pair once we form, that is going to be the counter value will get incremented. The moment we see that the counter value is basically reaching to this 4, we are done. Okay, we got the answer, we are coming out of the loop. Okay, so 1 and 1 is basically the first pair. The difference between 1 and 1 is basically 0, so the counter got incremented. Now the next pair we can consider is, since this is the array, okay, let me get it right over here. Next value is basically, so it is basically less than 4. Okay, so 0 is basically less than 4, correct? So that is something what we are looking at. So the counter value got incremented. Our consideration is basically if 4 is the possible answer or not. That is something what we are trying to look right over here. Okay, the moment we see that okay, 4 is possible, possibly this 0 is basically less than or equals to this 4, so counter is something got incremented. The first pair is something what we got. Next pair is, so what we can try is like, this 1 and 1 is done. Now we can see for 2 and 3. Okay, because that is next the pair which is going to give us the lowest value. Okay, next pair is 2 and 3, but there is a possibility. Okay, remember here, if it is instead of 3, if it is 9, then here it is 10 and here it is 11. Here the difference between 2 and 9 is basically going to be more than 4, correct? So this is not the pair that we are looking for. Okay, the counter we can shift from this one to next indices. Okay, so 2 and 9 is not a pair. Okay, let us consider this one only. 2 and 9 is the pair. So here the difference between this 2 and 9 is what we get, 7. So 7 is greater than this 4. So this is not the answer that we are looking for. So counter will not get incremented. Next pair that we can check is between 9 and 10. Okay, between 9 and 10 is something what we are checking. So between 9 and 10, what is the difference that we are getting? It is basically 1, right? And 1 is basically less than this mid. So now the counter we can increment. So the counter is basically now 2, and 2 pairs are basically we are looking. So what are the differences that we got so far? 0 and 1. Okay, these are the differences that we got, and these all the differences basically less than or equals to this 4. So yes, 4 is basically the answer that is possible. Okay, 4 is the possible answer that we can have now. Okay, the moment we realize that 4 is possible, yes, of course 5 is going to be possible answer, 6 is going to be a possible answer, 7 is possible answer, and 8, 9, all these values will be a possible answer, because see this pair whatever we got here, right? So basically they are less than 4. The moment we realize that the next possible answers 5, 6, 7 till 9, all these values are going to be a possible answer. So what we can do is, our high basically currently pointing to 9. So from 4 to 9, all these values will be definitely possible answers. So what we can do is, we will create another answer value which points to 4 now, and low basically points to from 9 to mid minus 1. So basically, sorry, this high basically points to mid minus 1, because from 4 to 9 all these values will possible. So high should be shifted from this 4 to third index. Okay, so next is like, the moment we realize that okay 4 is possible answer, what we can do is high should be pointing to mid minus 1, and new range is low is basically pointing to 0, high is basically pointing to 3. So mid we will get from this, mid is basically 1, correct? So we divide 0 plus 3 divided by 2, basically it is going to be 1. Now we will check for 1 if 1 is basically a possible answer or not. So see, how we will do is, look from here again, this is the pair that we will going to get, and this is basically less than 1, because the same thing we will again going to do. We will run a for loop, we will check that if it is a possible answer or not, and if it is possible answer, yes, of course 1 is also possible answer, so answer will point to now 1, because the lowest value, whatever we get, that is where the answer will point. Now answer is basically pointing to 1. Okay, because see this is the pair that I am going to get, and this is less than or equals to 1. Okay, previously it was 4. Now these pairs are what I'll be going to look, and this is basically pointing to 1. So yes, of course 1 is also another possible answer. So mid is basically now with 1 we are getting the answer. So what we can do is, now again high basically points to mid minus 1. So low is basically pointing to 0, high is basically pointing to uh, mid minus 1, it is basically 0. So now low and high are basically equal. The moment basically high go beyond this low, or low goes beyond this high, we will break out of the loop. Okay, that is the binary search logic that we will be writing over here. So low and high are defined now. So mid is basically 0. We will check if 0 is possible answer or not. So again we will get the differences 0 and 1, that is the best possible answer that we can get. But again remember here, if it is again 11, okay, so this differences between 10 and 11 is 1, and the answer that we are looking for is 0. Okay, the new answer that we are looking for is 0, correct? So this here at this point the counter will not get incremented. What we will check is next pairs. So 10 and 11 is the next pair that we will be see. Here the difference is 1. Again 1 is basically greater than this 0 that we are looking for, right? The answer 0. So yes, it is not the answer. Next pair is like 11 minus 11. So this gives us 0. Okay, 0 is possible answer. Yes, so what we can do is basically we increment the counter. So the counter is now 2, and 2 pairs are something what we are looking. So this 1 and 1 and 11 and 11, both these pairs are satisfying our condition. So yes, the new answer is going to be 0 in this particular case, the moment I added 11. Okay, so yes, it is another possible answer. So the moment we realize that yes, 0 is the best answer that we are getting, because 0 answer is always greater than this 0 0. This pairs answer is always greater than 0 1, because the minimum pairs values is basically 0 0, not 0 1, right? So yes, out of this 0 0, 0 is the best answer that we are getting, right? So out of this 0 1, the best answer that we can get is 1. Okay, but since this is the new array that we have, and 0 is basically satisfying our condition, because p is basically 2 and 2 pairs of arrays are giving 0 answer. So yes, 0 is the best answer that we got. Okay, that's how we can solve this particular one. Let me write down the code, and after writing the code also I'll take you through this problem another again. I'll walk you through another example, and you guys will get the idea. And you can look into the binary search playlist that I have created already on the YouTube, so you can watch them. And once you watch all those videos, definitely you will get the idea like how, okay, this is how we can solve these type of problems, and you will be confident solving these type of problems. Okay, so the first thing that we do is basically sort this array, because that way we will get the lowest possible pairs differences between among all the different values. That is you cleared, right? So because 1 and 10 is always greater than 9 and 10, or 2 and 10. So yes, of course addition values will give, always gives us the lowest value. So we will sort the data. So after sorting the nums of array, the low is basically 0, because 0 is the lowest answer that we can get. The high is basically nums of, let me get the length, and len equals nums dot length. Okay, got the length. Now here what I can do is len minus 1, the last element, minus nums of 0th index value, whatever it is having. So that is what the high, and we will run a while loop. Okay, low less than equals to high. So because that was the condition, right? So last condition was basically high is also 0, low is also 0. So that point we are checking. So see, there is another possibility that sometimes what happens is at let us suppose at first index the value is not satisfying. So if the value is not satisfying here, in a case 0 and 2 is what we got the differences, so it is not satisfying to 1. So here what we can do is basically we will increment this loop from mid plus 1, because 1 is not satisfying, then definitely 0 is also not going to satisfy. We will check for 2 and 3 between these values if anything is possible or not. Okay, and 2 is basically will possible. So that time this low, when we increment it from low to high, sorry, this mid plus 1, we will reach at 2, because currently mid was 1, and 1 for 1 only we are trying to look if it is going to be the answer. For here this example, the range was from 0 to 3. Okay, and the mid is something about 1, and 1 is something what we are trying to look for if it is possible or not. When we get this type of differences, definitely 1 is not the best answer that we are looking out, right? So yes, we will break out of this loop, and we go to check for range between 2 to 3. For this 2 to 3, because 0 and 1 definitely they both will not satisfy the answer, so we have to check for the higher values only. 2 to 3, 4 was already done, so yes, we are checking for the lowest ranges among them, which is the best possible answer that we get. Okay, yes, that is something what I have to clear there. Mid equals to low plus high minus low divided by 2. Now we got the mid. What we can do is basically, uh, we'll check if is possible. Okay, whatever the mid value that we got, if it is satisfying the, it is giving us the ranges or not. So if it is possible, definitely whatever the higher values that we have, those will also satisfy. We'll create the answer and we update this value. Okay, let me create answer. So best answer for the answer is like, if there are no empty possibilities, so it should be 0. So we are pointing answer to 0. The moment at any point in time, whatever the value that we are getting, if it is satisfying, we will update answers to mid. Okay, not to high, to mid. Whatever the mid value that we are getting, we are updating. So basically the next thing is, if it is not satisfying, we will check for higher values. Okay, low equals to mid plus 1. For this one, I'll take an example and I'll walk you through again, then you will understand it. Now we will define this is possible function. Okay, public boolean is possible. Here what we will pass is int the difference value. We will check if the difference between the pair whichever we pick, if it is satisfying for this particular value, the mid value. So if it is possible, we will increment the counters. Those logics is something what we have to write over here. And p, okay, p pairs is something what we are looking for. I'll create a counter to check if it is or pairs, if it is matching to this pair or not. So we got those many pairs or not. Okay, we'll run a for loop for int I equals 0, I less than. So I will start from the first index. Okay, you will get the idea like why I'm starting with the first index, just to avoid overflow conditions or to consider the last outside of this for loop. I'm carrying it out. So nums of I, okay, we are currently at first index minus nums of I minus 1. So first index minus 0th index, so definitely that is going to be always greater than or equals to 0 if it is less than equals to diff value. Okay, whatever the difference that we are looking at, so whatever the difference, the first pair that I am picking is nums of I and nums of I minus 1. So 0th index and first index, this that is going to be first pair. Okay, if the difference is less than or equals to whatever the diff value that we are planning to see, so if it is, then what we will do is the count or pairs will get incremented. Of course, now this is satisfying, so this particular index is something what I have to avoid, so I will increment I again. So 2 times I will get incremented, because if it is, this pair is satisfying, look at this, if this is pair is satisfying, currently I is pointing to this one, next I is basically pointing to here, but again for this also that if condition will run, right? So I have to skip this particular index, so what I do is pointer will point to here, so that we can look into these pairs, because I will get incremented 2 times here as well as in this loop. Okay, the moment it is satisfying, we will increment I 2 times. Okay, so that next pair will point to skipping the middle element. Okay, yes, that is something what we do. Now we check that here insert itself, if pairs equals p, yes, we got all the pairs that are satisfying this for this particular difference. What we can do is we will return from here true. If it is not, we will return false from here. Okay, that's this easiest way to write this code. We will return from here the answer. Let us run this code. Talking about the time complexity, this particular binary search will take log of whatever the high value that we got minus low. So it is going to be log of, let us suppose if the high value from the arrays is basically m, so log of m is the time complexity to run this particular code. And this if possible function, we are running it till the for loop end, so it is going to be, if length is n, so it is going to be n. So yes, it is n into log of m, that is the time complexity. And again we are sorting the data, it is n log n. Okay, whichever is the maximum, so n log n plus n log m, that is the time complexity we get. So let us submit this code as well, and let me take you through another example. So if you If you guys got this whatever the solution that I have right over here, you can close the video now. Let me take to the guys who didn't get this solution so far. I'll walk them with another example. Okay, so let us have this example. 1 4, then it is 5 6, after 5 it is 9, then let us take 13, then it is going to be 16. Okay, here p value is, let us suppose, 2. Two pairs I have to see, which should give us the whatever the values that we will get, differences between them should be minimum, and out of the minimum differences pairs, which is the maximum value that we get, that is something what we have to write. Okay, that is the clarity. So what is the difference between first pair? Let us think that what is the range? Our range is from 0 to 16 minus 1, that is 15. Okay, so 15, that is the range that we have, right? Because in between this range only we will get the answer. So the low is basically now 0 as per the code. High is basically now 15, correct? And mid is basically 15 divided by 2 is basically 7, correct? Mid is something what we got 7. Now we will see if 7 is possible answer or not. Okay, so how do we see? We will subtract these values, 1 and 4. What is the value that we get? That is been 3, correct? So 3 is basically less than 7. Yes, it is satisfying. So the counter got incremented. Now counter is basically pointing to 1. Now this is difference between 4 is already considered, so we will skip this one. Okay, we will check between these two pairs, 5 and 9. So what is the difference between 5 and 9? It is basically 4. Okay, so yes, now counter is basically 2. This is also satisfying because 7 is what we are looking for, 4 is less than 7 always. So yes, the counter is basically 2, and the pound two pairs are something what we have to see. So two pairs we form. Yes, it is satisfying. We return true. The moment we return true, what we are doing here, I is basically pointing to mid minus 1, because all the rest values 8, 9, 10, those will definitely satisfy. So we are not going to see for them. So what we do is basically we look for the lowest pairs. Okay. So now the range is basically from 0 to 6, because now the high is basically pointing to mid minus 1, so it is 6. So what is the next mid? It is going to be 0 minus 6 divided by 2. 6 minus 0 divided by 2 is basically 3. Now the mid is 6, sorry, mid is 3. Okay, this is the new range. Among this range the answer is going to be relay. So the answer got updated to 7. Okay, previously whatever the value that is satisfied, that is 7. So again we will run this for loop. We will get these differences. So 3 is what we got from this 4 and 1 and 4. So 3 is basically satisfying because 3 is something what we are looking for, correct? So next pair is like 5 and 9. It is giving 4. Is it satisfying? Because the difference between the pairs should be 3. That is something what we are looking for, or less than 3. But 4 is not satisfying, so it is not the pair that we are looking for. The next pair is between 9 to 13. So difference between the 9 to 13 is 4. Again, it is not satisfying because 3 is something what we are trying to see if we can get the lowest answer 3 is, if it is possible. So yes, it is not the another answer that we are looking for. Now the difference between 13 and 16 is basically 3. So yes, it is possible, right? So 3 is something what we are looking for, and this pair is basically giving us the answer. So 3 and 3 are another pairs. So yes, it is satisfying the answer. So what we can do is the counters are basically 2. So because two different pairs differences are basically matching with this value. So yes, it is basically returned to, the moment it is returning true, what we can do is the high is basically point to mid minus 1. So basically we will check between the lowest values. Okay, if 3 is possible, 4, 5, 6, all these values will definitely satisfy, because this is the differences that we are getting, and whatever the values that we get, higher values, those basically realize in this one. Okay, yes, now the high is basically pointing to 2. So the range got shrink from 0 to 2, correct? 0 to 2 is the range you have, and the mid value is basically 1, because 0 plus 2 divided by 2 is basically going to be 1, correct? So mid is 1. The answer is now currently it was pointing to 3, correct? Now let us look for this range. Let us see if 1 is possible answer or not. So difference between 1 and 4 is basically 3. It is not the answer. So yes, it is not a possible case. Now we will see between 4 and 5. It is not the case which gives us the mid 1 value. No pairs will give us value as 1, correct? So we simply return false because the pairs whatever we are trying to see will never get incremented, and at the end we'll return false. Okay, the moment we return false, we are entering into the else case. So now what we do is basically this low will point to mid plus 1. So low is basically 2, high was basically 2 as same, the mid is going to be now the range is new from 2 to 2, basically whatever the mid we get is going to be 2, correct? 2 plus 2 divided by 2 is basically 2. The answer was 3 as itself, because it will get updated only if the possible answer is something what we got. Okay, now we say that between this whatever the 2 is the answer that we are looking for, if any pairs gives us the 2 answer or not. Okay, this is the difference. The difference is 3, it is not even closer to 2. So we try to see if any pair gives us values equals to 2 or less than that. No pairs will give us the values less than or equals to 2. So this is also not possible. Now what we do is again we enter into this else loop. So low is basically mid plus 1, so it is 3. Now 3 is actually greater than this 2, so we break out of this loop and the best answer that we can get is 3. Okay, that's how we solve this one. Okay, the answer whatever the answer that got updated, it was 3, so that's how we will return. Okay, so yes, there are different problems, yes, and I already covered it, this type of problems in a binary playlist, binary search playlist. So please go and watch that playlist. You will get confidence to solve these type of problems at any point in time, because the same pattern it will follow. Just slight modifications is something what that the logic, that is something what we have to figure out, this particular logic. And yes, we are done with this problem. Thank you for watching this video. Bye bye.